for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. With the U.S. Fed Reserve likely to raise rates this week, Korea's central bank is put in a tight spot, weighing capital outflows and a bloated household debt pile. Pilot projects are underway at local farms specializing in various crops with the goal of modifying the system for regional use. These stories and more coming right up. Following President Park Geun-hye's impeachment decision on Friday, financial authorities have joined hands to get a grip on the country's ballooning household debt. Officials of both the Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service attended the joint monitoring meeting held earlier today. There, FSC Chairman Im Jong-yong announced that next year's target ratio for fixed-rate loans would be raised to 45%, while also raising the ratio of installment loans from 50 to 55%. FSS Director Jin Ung-sup added that his team would keep a close eye on forex trading and manage potential vulnerabilities ahead of an expected U.S. rate hike this week. And speaking of that potential rate hike, markets are viewing a U.S. Fed rate increase this week as a near certainty. And as the Bank of Korea is due to announce its policy decision one day after the FOMC, it finds itself stuck between a rock and a hard place due to rising household debt. Arirang explains.
The U.S. Federal Open Market Committee has kept the country's key interest rate at a range between 0.25 and 0.5%. That's widely expected to change this week as investors price in the first rate hike since last December. And should that happen, emerging economies, including Korea, could see a deeper capital flight as liquidity rushes to the U.S. market.
There's a chance we'll see a decrease in the inflow of foreign funds or further contraction of consumption and/or investment.
Under regular conditions, the Bank of Korea would also raise rates in its meeting that this month will come one day after the FOMC makes its announcement. But the BOK's hands are tied with the conundrum of household debt. Data from the BOK shows that household debt came to 1,295 trillion won as of September. Add to that fresh household loans held by banks in October, and the total figure exceeds 1,300 trillion won, or 1.11 trillion US dollars. It also means household debt has added 100 trillion won in just the past year. If the BOK raises interest rates this week, that would present a heavier financial burden to those loan holders. At a time wages have largely remained flat, the fear is that consumption would be further depressed, with more Koreans potentially defaulting on their debts. The Bank of Korea has held its rate steady at 1.25% since dropping it to a fresh low back in May. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
The Korean equity market didn't move much on the first session of the week after last week's rally. And of course, this week, the December FOMC meeting will be the most important event. We're now joined by our markets contributor, Choi Jin-suk, to talk about stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-suk.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market close on the first day of the week?
The Kospi market was mostly flat on the first session of the week, while the Kosdaq rose sharply for consecutive sessions. The Kospi index once settled above 2030 in early hours as a great deal of domestic political uncertainty is thought to have been eased. But retail investors who unloaded shares dragged down the index into negative territory in early afternoon. Meanwhile, the Kosdaq recovered 600 for the first time in 10 days as institutions bought shares.
So with the National Assembly having passed the impeachment bill on Friday, I think political uncertainty has faded much significantly. But now all eyes are on the December FOMC. So what are the expectations on that?
That's right. The December FOMC will definitely be the dominant factor determining the future direction of global financial markets. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed, is projected to raise interest rates for the first time in a year, according to almost all experts, investors, and asset markets. CME Fed Watch, a futures market betting on future rate hikes, now shows a 95% possibility of a hike in December. Therefore, the focus of the December FOMC is not the rate hike itself, but what policy the Fed will take on in the coming year. Along with the FOMC, U.S. retail sales and consumer price data will be key economic indicators for this week.
And you mentioned that investors will be looking ahead to Fed policy. So what are some of the things that they need to focus from FOMC results?
First, global financial markets will focus on every word that Fed Chair Janet Yellen will say during her press conference right after the FOMC. Especially, we need to concentrate on what she will say about future monetary and fiscal policies of the upcoming Donald Trump administration. After the U.S. presidential election, the U.S. stock market has enjoyed a huge rally, reflecting expectations for loosened regulations and aggressive investment plans. The Dow Industrial Average has surged by about 8%. That's why Yellen's comments on future government policies can affect the overall sentiment in equity markets. The so-called dot plot, a statistical chart consisting of rate expectations of Fed officials, is another important factor. After the first rate hike last December, Fed officials expected 4 hikes this year, but the Fed didn't manage to pull the trigger all year due to various external uncertainty.
And the Bank of Korea will hold its monetary policy meeting this week as well. So what are the expectations?
Most experts expect the BOK will hold its benchmark interest rate at 1.25% during its last committee meeting for this year. External uncertainty, including monetary policy decisions and an administrative transition in the U.S., as well as domestic household debt issues, could pressure the BOK to change its monetary policies down the line. 2 out of 10 analysts, though, surveyed by financial media outlet E! Today, expect the BOK will cut rates in the first half of 2017.
Now, despite last week's rally, there's still a mixed picture throughout the Korean stock market. So what are the predictions for this week's market direction?
Experts project a so-called relief rally after the FOMC and the BOK meeting because global financial markets will see these events as reducing uncertainty. In particular, mid to small cap stocks that have underperformed all year long are expected to get a boost towards the year end. But there's still reason to be cautious. Sentiment among foreign investors doesn't seem to be too positive. The Financial Supervisory Service said foreign holdings of Korean shares experienced a sharp downturn after 5 straight months of net purchases as foreign investors sold $1.02 billion worth of stocks in November. According to the financial watchdog, sales were led by European investors, followed by those from the Middle East and Asia, while American investors continued their buying streak starting in October.
So a lot to keep our eyes on this week. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Facility investment by local firms has dipped this year. Preliminary survey results from Korea Development Bank indicates that investments for plants and equipment by over 3,500 companies shrank 0.8% compared to last year, stopping at $153 billion. This is about 98% of the initial projections made at the beginning of the year. The bank says the decline was due to sagging economic growth, slowing exports, as well as overcapacity in some industries. Next year's sum is set to grow 0.1%, with large firms expected to increase spending by almost 3%, while smaller firms are likely to cut facility investment by about 13%. On-year job growth here in Korea dropped to its slowest pace in more than 6 years last month as the government pushes through its corporate restructuring drive. The Labor Ministry says workers eligible to receive employment insurance for November rose 2.3% to 12.6 million. That marks the slowest pace of rise since September 2010. Now, the sluggish job growth comes on the back of a drop in the number of jobs in transportation equipment manufacturing. Employment in the sector, which includes shipbuilding as well as railway and aviation equipment production, was down around 28,000 in November from a year earlier. Exports of Korean pop culture products have taken a dive in recent months in the wake of Beijing's protest against Seoul's decision to station a U.S. missile defense system on the peninsula. Data released by the Bank of Korea on Monday indicates that earnings from outbound shipments of TV shows, movies, and music fell to $51.5 million in October. That's a decrease of more than 21% from September and a 13-month low. The total also included entertainers' earnings overseas. A BOK official attributes the decline to Beijing's recent actions in retaliation for Seoul's decision to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD to Korea. Smart farming technology is set to bring changes to Korean agriculture, which is struggling under the weight of an aging farming population and rising imports. Our Park Se-young has the details.
At this tomato farm, the ventilation system is activated automatically when the humidity inside the greenhouse exceeds 80%. At night, a cover for ceiling and warmth unrolls on its own. The facility is making use of smart farm technology that enables customized control of greenhouses. The settings can be modified from anywhere using a computer or smartphone.
It reduces time and the inconvenience of travelling back and forth, and I worry less when I'm away because I can check on my farm anytime.
In 7 regions across the nation, farms that specialize in various crops tested the Smart Farm service as part of a year-long trial conducted by the Rural Development Administration. After the year was up, the farmers gathered to offer their feedback. 3 crops were harvested during the trial year. Chrysanthemum farmers reported a 10-day reduction in the number of days it took to get to harvest and energy savings of 35%. Grape farmers reported a reduction in grape berry cracking from 12% to 5%. Despite the benefits, participants still thought the system could use some improvement, though the RDA vowed to address their needs.
After receiving feedback on site, we can make up for the drawbacks and develop manuals for autonomous distribution of the Korean model of the system.
The RDA is set to add 7 more farms specializing in different crops next year to polish the system for use in Korea. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
A growing number of food manufacturers and retailers are coming up with new quality menus to target solo diners, as well as those who simply don't have the time to cook at home. Our Arirang has more.
Quality and convenience seem to be the buzzwords in Korea's home meal replacement market these days. From ready-to-eat steak to Singapore's famous chili crab dish, 2 minutes is all it takes to get what consumers call near-restaurant results.
I love steak, but I'm not all that good at cooking. I love how I can just eat this at home. It's so good.
While many food manufacturers are joining the race, E-Mart's in-house packaged food brand, Peacock, is currently leading the market. The mega supermarket chain says Peacock sales recorded $66 million just in the first half of this year, surpassing the annual sales revenue of 2014. E-Mart adds Peacock now makes up more than 10% of its packaged food sales.
Items that led sales were sausage stew, jjampong, soy sauce marinated crab, and samgyetang. We also plan to launch more dessert products in the future.
Experts say this is largely due to the 5.2 million single-person households that make up about 27% of all homes in the nation. They also project that the market will continue to grow as dual-income families that are crunched for cooking time are gradually increasing. Thanks to this trend, Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation projects Seoul's home meal replacement market will grow as large as $1.9 billion this year, maintaining the upward climb seen since 2010. While easy-to-cook meals are gaining a firm footing in the nation, there are also growing calls to address health issues, as some of these products are found to have excessively high sodium content and low nutrition. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.